For hundreds of years, Christians have been curious about where Jesus' tomb is. Recently, a major find was made at the Church of the Holy Sepulchre in Jerusalem. People who are Christians believe that this church is where Jesus was crucified and buried. Historical records say that Jesus was crucified at Golgotha, also called the Place of the Skull, which is outside of Jerusalem's walls. Surprisingly, about 10 years after Jesus' death, new city walls added this area to Jerusalem's limits, putting the church in the Old City. Emperor Constantine I was the first Roman emperor to become a Christian. Around 326 AD, he started building the church on this site after tearing down a temple to Venus. Because of this demolition, a tomb thought to be Jesus was found, which led to many people making pilgrimages to this holy place. From the Cardo, Jerusalem's main street, pilgrims would walk through a number of religious and historical sites to get to the tomb. The rock-cut tomb wasn't protected at first, but later it got a structure to cover it. Works of art from the early 5th century, the Madaba mosaic map from the 6th century, and writings by Eusebius of Caesarea all show how grand it was. During her pilgrimage in 326 AD, Constantine's mother, Saint Helena, is said to have found the true cross, which is thought to be the cross on which Jesus was crucified. The church went through a lot of bad things. In 614 AD, a Persian army destroyed it, which meant that the true cross was lost. The true cross reappeared in 631 AD. After the Arabs took over in 638, changes were made to the basilica. For example, the entrance was turned into a mosque. A fire in 966 AD and the destruction of the church by the Fatimid Caliph al-Hakim in 1009 were big changes. Nevertheless, in the late 1100s, the Byzantine Emperor Constantine IX Monomachos paid for its reconstruction and changed its layout, moving the entrance to the south side. In 1077, the Seljuk Turks took over Jerusalem, which made people worried about how they would treat Christian pilgrims. This led to the First Crusade, which took place between 1096 and 1099 and tried to take back holy Christian sites, especially the Church of the Holy Sepulchre. The Crusaders' successful siege of Jerusalem in 1099 led to important religious events, even though the church was in bad shape and didn't have a roof. After the Crusaders took over, the church went through a lot of repairs that lasted 50 years. The original design was kept, but it was changed into a cathedral in the style of Western architecture. The church's garden also changed during this time into the Crusaders' basilica, with separate chapels being built, such as one for the Rock of Golgotha. The rededication of the church on July 15, 1149, marked the 50th anniversary of the Crusaders taking over Jerusalem. However, work continued on the building after this date, largely resulting in the structure we see today. Even after Muslims retook control of the city in 1187 and closed off one church entrance, pilgrims continued to visit the site, and Western powers made an effort to keep them out. A big archaeological find was made recently inside Jesus' tomb at the Church of the Holy Sepulchre in the middle of Jerusalem, which is a major Christian pilgrimage site thought to include Golgotha, the place where Jesus was crucified. This discovery, which revealed a marble slab and mortar from the time of Emperor Constantine, backs up historical accounts that this is where Jesus was buried. It supports accounts from the New Testament and Constantine's God-inspired efforts to locate and revere this sacred burial site in the 4th century. Finding the limestone cave tomb under what is thought to be an ancient Roman building dedicated to Venus is a major event in the history of Christian archaeology. It proves that the tomb is real and has a huge effect on Christian faith and heritage. A tomb thought to be that of Jesus Christ that had been sealed for hundreds of years was found in the middle of Jerusalem's Church of the Holy Sepulchre. This tomb is an important part of the Christian faith, and its history and religion are intertwined with stories from the past and the present about the Holy City. Researchers made history when they found the burial bed that they think is where Jesus' body was laid after he died on the cross, around the 1st century. This site is revered for its deep spiritual connection. Its history fits with records from the Byzantine era, which show that it was built during the reign of Emperor Constantine in the early 4th century, around 326 AD. As a result of what his mother Helena found, Constantine ordered the destruction of a pagan temple, which revealed this holy tomb. This important discovery was not only a big step forward in biblical archaeology, but it also proved Christian stories in a deep way. The design of the tomb is similar to that of Jewish tombs from the 1st century. It has a shelf or burial bed hewn from solid rock, which is how the elite of Jerusalem were buried. Since at least 1555 and possibly even earlier, a marble slab has protected this shelf. Its silence speaks volumes about how much respect it has received over the years. Experts have looked at the marble slab and found a timeline that goes back to the 1400s. This adds to the tomb's long and interesting history. The tomb's importance has been emphasized in pilgrimage accounts going back hundreds of years, all the way up to its current form in the Church of the Holy Sepulchre. The church, which Constantine constructed and then altered, is a representation of Christian faith and a timeline of Jerusalem's lengthy and turbulent history of religious devotion. In a recent scientific study, Antonia Moropoulou used radiocarbon dating on mortar samples from the tomb's structure. This supports historical claims that the site is very old. These results not only support historical claims about how old the tomb is, but they also add to the religious and historical stories that surround this holy place. The fact that the foundational slab of Jesus' tomb was sealed around 335 AD, in the middle of the 4th century, on Emperor Constantine's orders, adds a huge amount to our knowledge of the history of this holy place. During Constantine's Christian Empire, this important time in Christian history saw a lot of changes. The physical and spiritual landscapes of Jerusalem became more connected. Scientists used optically stimulated luminescence, OSL, dating on mortar samples from the edicule's structure to find out when the quartz sediments were last exposed to light, which helped them figure out when they happened in time. This more advanced dating method, which was done in specialized labs, confirmed that the tomb's enclosure had early Christian roots. It definitively connects it to the time of Constantine, who ruled from 306 to 337 AD. More research into the tomb's building history showed that the mortar from the entrance was from the 11th century, which is around the time that the church was restored after it was destroyed in 1009. This phase of the rebuilding, which started after the Fatimid Caliph al-Hakim destroyed the church, demonstrates how arduously people have toiled for hundreds of years to safeguard this revered structure. The scientific investigation into the tomb's past also revealed layers of renovations, including mortar from 1570, which shows a period of major restoration that helped shape the edicule as it is today. These results not only show how architecture has changed over time, but they also tell the story of how the tomb of Jesus has been revered and fixed up over time. The tomb is now part of the Church of the Holy Sepulchre, which is a symbol of how faith, history, and scientific inquiry can all work together. It is still managed under the status quo system that was set up during the Ottoman era, and millions of pilgrims visit every year, connecting old traditions with modern spiritual quests. There are 7 possible places in Jerusalem where the real burial site of Jesus could be found, not just the Church of the Holy Sepulchre. The Talpiot family tomb stands out among these. It is located about 5 kilometers south of Jerusalem's Old City. The Talpiot tomb was found in 1980, but it got a lot of attention after the 2007 Discovery Channel documentary, The Lost Tomb of Jesus, which was led by James Cameron and Simcha Jacobovici. 10 ossuaries were found in the Talpiot tomb. Some of them had familiar names on them like Jesus, Mary, and Joseph. An interesting ossuary named Mariamene led people to wonder if it had anything to do with Mary Magdalene and by extension Jesus. As the excavations went on, they found ossuaries that said things like Jude, son of Jesus, and Jesus, son of Joseph. These inscriptions supported family tree theories and even made it seem possible that Jesus and Mary Magdalene had a son named Jude. Because these names were common in Judea in the 1st century AD, scholars warn against making direct connections to biblical figures. The story of the documentary, which was led by Cameron and Jacobovici, may have put too much emphasis on these common names in order to make shocking conclusions. The movie showed that the Jesus and Mariamene ossuaries had a relationship that wasn't motherly, pointing to a marriage. Not everyone agreed with the results, though, because they could also mean other family ties, not just a marriage link. James Tabor, who believed in the Talpiot tomb theory, suggested that it could be where Jesus and his family, including the biblical James, were buried. Chemical tests started by Jacobovici suggested a geological link between the Talpiot tomb and the James ossuary, but the results were controversial because of problems with the methods used and the size of the samples. The James ossuary's authenticity and where it came from are still being questioned, which makes its connection to the Talpiot tomb even less clear. There were critical voices in the academic community, including those in the documentary, who were worried that their ideas might have been misrepresented, which cast doubt on the documentary's conclusions. The story of the Talpiot tomb is also complicated by its location and the people who lived there at the time. Since Jesus' family comes from Galilee, a tomb in Jerusalem doesn't seem like a natural place for a family to be buried. Archaeologist Jody Magnus said that the tomb and the way its relics are named are more in line with Judean customs, which is different from Jesus' family's background in Galilee. The debate also includes the Garden Tomb, which became known as Gordon's Tomb, after Charles Gordon backed it in 1883. This site, like others, is part of a complex web of historical, religious, and archaeological efforts to find the final resting place of Jesus Christ, one of the most important people in history. Many people who visit the Garden Tomb in Jerusalem, especially evangelical Christians, find peace there because they think it is where Jesus was buried. However, the tomb's historical accuracy is hampered by guesses and claims that aren't based on evidence. In particular, Ron Wyatt's false claim that he found the Ark of the Covenant nearby casts a shadow of doubt over the site. Archaeological research also shows that there are no Second Temple period tombs nearby, which calls into question its supposed historical importance. Archaeologist Gabriel Barquet studied the Garden Tomb and found that it dates back to the Iron Age, around the 7th or 8th century BC. This means that it was built during the First Temple period, not during the time of Jesus. The New Testament talks about a new, unused tomb. This finding goes against that because the Garden Tomb would have been hundreds of years old when Jesus lived, so it can't be where he was buried. The Tomb of the Shroud in the Kidron Valley is another possible location where Jesus was buried, but its history is still unclear. Its closeness to the Garden of Gethsemane connects it to Joseph of Arimathea's story, but the tomb's connection to Jesus' burial is only a guess, based on scant archaeological evidence and differing scholarly opinions. Other places in Jerusalem, like the tomb of the Virgin Mary and the tomb of Joseph of Arimathea, are also talked about when people talk about where Jesus died and rose again. People who worship the Virgin Mary visit her tomb in the Kidron Valley, even though there is no solid historical evidence that it is where she was buried. According to the New Testament, Joseph of Arimathea buried Jesus in his own tomb. This adds another layer to the story, with many places, such as the Kidron Valley, being suggested as possible places for his tomb. When the Church of the Holy Sepulchre was fixed up in 2017, a previously hidden room inside Jesus' tomb was found. This added to the historical and mysterious appeal of this important site. This discovery, which dates back to a renovation in 1555, shows how hard it is to figure out all the mysteries of this holy place. These different sites and discoveries are a complicated tapestry of faith, history, and archaeology. They all add to the story of Jesus' life and death and the ongoing search for understanding what he left behind.